Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Sobat muslim yang dirahmati Allah, berikut ini adalah cuplikan perjalanan seorang mualaf dari non-muslim hingga dia memeluk agama Islam.
I'm really nervous to film this video. I don't know why. I mean, obviously I know why. This is a weird, controversial thing. I mean, it's not, but people make it out that it is. In my heart, this is a really happy story, but I don't know if I'm ready to share this. Do you like how my phone case matches my abaya? Okay, I'm gonna talk to you like you care what I have to say. In this video, I want to share with you the story of how I became a Muslim and therefore my revert journey. When I was 18, I had moved away from home. I had moved to America to study, and I was in Dartmouth in New Hampshire, and I, for the first time in my life, was away from home. I was away from everything that I knew up until that point. And I guess most crucially, I was away. That means that I was away from the status quo as I had known it. And the status quo that I had always known was a total atheist community. Like, I didn't know anyone really that was part of any kind of religion, or at least not in any kind of positive way. My family specifically have been touched by religion, but not in a very positive way. And obviously it's not my place to tell anybody else's story, but all I can say is that for certain members of my family, the experience that they had with Catholicism was almost 100% negative experience. And so that was what I knew of religion, that it was like for kind of crazy people who had imaginary friends and just used it because that they were sort of like weak and that they needed something. And I grew up in quite like a chaotic environment as well, so an extremely disadvantaged area as well, so I felt quite hopeless for most of my like teenage life. I'm gonna cry. I don't want to cry. I think that I had a spiritual yearning all along, but without that being fed, I think everything just felt hard and pointless, really. When I moved to America, I had a friend there who I met who was a Muslim, and they explained to me like the thing that I think about the most, or the thing that stands out the most at that time, was I remember them explaining that they knew people that didn't drink because of their beliefs and not because they got violent or like had a problem with when they got drunk. And I remember finding that really, really interesting, because growing up, the only people I knew who didn't drink, they didn't drink because they had some sort of problem, like they would become extremely violent or something like that when they drank. So this was like very interesting to me, and I guess it was something that I had been wanting to hear, because around that time I just stopped drinking, so I hadn't actually understood anything about the religion, and I still didn't think that there was a place for me in that religion. Like, I didn't think that that was even possible, or like how to go about that. I didn't have a strong direction at that time, but I just stopped drinking, and then I found that that created a lot more peace in my life. When I returned to the UK after a year, then I was in university, and that's when I met one of my most dear friends. And calling her friend is like it doesn't even capture. Okay, I met my sister. Like, you can say a sister is so much more than a friend. Flash forward 10 years later, then that is the friend that actually helped me revert. I think I'll make a whole separate video on the day that I reverted, because of this beautiful friend. It was a beautiful, beautiful day, and it kind of deserves its own video, and that might be interesting for anyone that is thinking about reverting. Or I forgot to say, today is Jummah, so Jummah Mubarak if it's Friday where you are. I don't have very much time to finish this video because I have to leave at 12:30 to go to Jummah, but we'll see how far I get. It shouldn't actually take that long, but it's taking long because it feels so vulnerable to tell this story. But I want to tell it because there were YouTubers who I watched around that time when I was finally going to actually revert, and they helped me so much. So the ones that come to mind most specifically is Kashama Meridian. So yeah, for that purpose, I do want to film this video. It's just hard. So where was it? I had this spiritual kind of desire, and what my friend had told me about Islam, I really liked the sound of it. The kind of guiding principles, the way to live your life, to live a happy, peaceful life. And I agreed with all the ways that were taught. And he described to me like how growing up with that kind of structure, it had brought him so much peace growing up and meaning. And that was something that I craved at that time. I think I wasn't ready then, and I kind of continued living my life. I was really focused on building a company because although I think deep down I had this spiritual yearning for meaning and for peace in my life, but what that manifested on the surface was just, I also thought that everything would be better if I became an entrepreneur and I had £1 million company, and I really wanted to take a company to IPO, and I wanted to become a millionaire. At that time, I was like reading the books of like Steve Jobs and people like that, and I really thought that was the way that I was gonna kind of feel better. I started a company during my master's year with 2 friends. For the first 2 years, it did give me that feeling that I thought that it would. I felt really excited and really happy, but as with all kind of worldly things, it doesn't last. And it was fun in the beginning, and I had more freedom than I would have had in a corporate job, but I think I actually wasn't feeling fulfilled. And I think actually fulfillment and fun are the most important in order to have like a happy day-to-day. And I must credit Ali Abdul. It was him who I first heard this concept of the 3 Fs: fulfillment, fun, and freedom. He was talking about it actually in relation to starting YouTube, but he was saying, yeah, freedom might be the goal in terms of like time and money, but you have to have fun and you have to feel fulfilled on a day-to-day basis for anything to be sustainable. And that's talking about YouTube, we're talking about anything. And I find that relates really to everything. And so I started this company. It was extremely successful, and we were making the millions I always hoped to make. It was fun in the beginning, and I had freedom, but it wasn't fulfilling. As the fun wore away, I was left with freedom, but without fulfillment and without fun, you really have nothing. And there were many reasons why I left the company, which I can go into in maybe another video. And I would like to make more videos about the whole experience of starting a company, because I did learn a lot, which I think would be beneficial to some of you. But for the purpose of this story, I left the company. I had no idea where I was going to go next or what I wanted to do, because the thing that had been my guiding light up until that point was gone, or it was gone, because I realized that it didn't make me feel the way that I wanted to feel. It didn't make me feel better. In fact, it actually made me feel worse towards the end. Very privileged position because I had saved enough money to be able to travel. So I traveled in China for a month on my own. Again, I want to make a video about that because I saw so many interesting things and I just had the best time, and I want to share that with you all. After that, then I spent literally 9 months doing almost nothing other than walking and thinking. And it was during this time that I finally got to the point where I was ready to actually accept Islam, and I knew that this was now the thing that everywhere that I had failed to find the fulfillment before, I finally could see that this was the way that I would find that, or at least I hoped. I don't think I had the courage to hope very strongly. It wasn't like I had this very strong vision of like, I'm going to feel amazing after this, but I think I felt compelled. And so I was having coffee with that very special friend that I mentioned earlier, and I sort of mentioned it to her like in the middle of a conversation, like, yeah, I think that like I want to revert. And then I was like super casual about it, like I was just kind of like, yeah, I'm kind of thinking that. And then her reaction was so big and so beautiful. And then I think when I saw her reaction, that's when I felt the intensity and the gravity of the decision. And because she already had this special thing in her life, she already had faith in her life, I think that's what made her reaction so big and so beautiful, and so emotional, was because she knew what I was accepting into my life, whereas like I didn't know that feeling. So I was kind of like, yeah, I think this is what I want to do, but I don't know. And then so her reaction made me feel like more excited and more nervous. And anyway, she kind of she said, like, leave it with me, I'm going to arrange everything. And alhamdulillah, she arranged everything. And again, that's the thing, the date I actually reverted, I'll talk about that in a different video. Long story short, I went through the process. I mean, it's a very simple process. You basically just need to say the Shahada. You could do it right now if you wanted to, just alone in your room. I wanted to make more like a ceremony of it, just because I'm that kind of person. I do like a little bit of a fanfare, not fanfare, but like I like a bit of a ceremony. That was December of 2023. So I have been Muslim for a year now, and I thought that was actually the best time to make this video. Was after a year I can reflect on everything that's happened in the past year. When I talked about those 3 F's before, the fun, fulfillment and freedom, I finally have found that fulfillment part that I was always looking for. It was hard to accept because I obviously have that inner critic inside my head going like, only crazy people or pathetic people need like imaginary friends to make them feel happy. But I just accepted that if that makes me crazy, then that makes me crazy, because it makes me happy. It genuinely brings me peace. It's such a beautiful religion. There's so many things about the religion that I want to talk about that I enjoyed so much, or that I continue to enjoy so much. I think of all the aspects of Islam that I love, I think the one that is the most meaningful to me and brings me the most fulfillment is that like direct connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because when you get on your prayer mat for any one of your prayers, so you're talking directly, and actually like I can talk with him at any time of the day, and the feeling that everything has been written, that the struggles that I've had in the past and the blessings I have in the present, that they're written. Because one of the biggest fears that I have is like the thought of everything being taken away all of a sudden, or the feeling that, you know, that my decisions are gonna like derail everything. But actually it's like it's already been written, and it was written like long before I got here, and everything that I've been through in my life was leading me to this point, and that makes me feel really happy and really peaceful inside. And some of the other things that I love are the community. So the Ummah, I find when I go visit Muslim countries, the reception is just so beautiful, and people always say like, oh, are you Muslim? Because they're not sure, and I say yes, and they're always just like, alhamdulillah, mashallah. And I think that's just so beautiful. Obviously, in the West, the media represents Islam.
Nah, bagaimana saudara-saudara muslim yang dirahmati Allah? Apakah cuplikan tadi cukup menginspirasi bagi kita semua? Semoga saja ya. Silahkan bagikan video ini jika bermanfaat, dan terima kasih menonton. Sampai jumpa kembali di postingan berikutnya. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.